Welcome to the Brass Junkies, a podcast from the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network featuring interviews with the world's greatest brass players by two thoroughly average ones, Lance LaDuke and myself, Andrew Hitz. Today's episode features Brazilian composer, teacher, and euphonium virtuoso Fernando Deddos. He tells us about how he came to become the first ever Brazilian with a doctorate in euphonium performance and about how he has paved the way for others to now pursue performance degrees on euphonium in his home country. He also talks about the history of Brazilian music and the role that the euphonium has played in it, as well as all about Brazilian barbecue. He tells us all about it next. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Brass Junkies. I am your host, Andrew Hitz, and I am joined by the always unpredictable and ever insightful Lance LaDuke. How are you doing today, Lance?
I'm unpredictably insightful.
That was really stupid. All right. So anyways, we have a very special guest today. I say that all the time, but we actually do have one this time. We'll get into his past. We're going to dig deep into his past. We're going to even ask him if he was a tree, what kind of a tree he would be, all the important questions.
Next up on a very special The Brass Junkies.
If you were a twee, what kind of a twee would you be? And I gotta think this is our third interview of the day, and it's only 12:30, so we're punchy. So we have to thank Austin Boyer and Buddy Deschler, our wonderful producers from Fred Brass. They are unable to join us for this episode, but Lance, I believe, can tell us where they are instead of joining us.
Well, I don't know if you've been following. I played a couple of tricks on them over the last few episodes, and I felt kind of bad, so I treated them. They're actually getting full body waxing and mani-pedis today. Well, we have a Brazilian on, so I thought that's perfect.
We do. Yeah. We do.
Those boys are clean, let's just say.
All right. That's a little too much information, but that was awfully nice of you, Lance. Are they?
Well, I felt bad.
One of them lives in Baltimore, and the other lives in Amherst, Mass. So are they doing it separately, or did they meet somewhere in like northern Jersey halfway, or where?
Well, see, here's the thing: the part that they didn't know, I said that I had done a very special thing for them, and that this was that thing. And what they don't know is that it's actually in. It's in inner city Detroit, and I told them to just go in and tell them that I had done this package for them, and they were supposed to just sort of go in and that everything that get all the treatments, just get up and walk out the door without paying because it was all going to be covered. So watch the news. I mean, it should be interesting. I don't know how it's going to work out exactly.
This bit gets weirder with every single pass.
Okay,
all right. Well, all the best to Buddy and Austin. So
clean.
Also, you know the pitch at this point, but if you could go to iTunes and leave us a rating and even a quick review, it would be awesome. There's a number of you who have already done that. We very much appreciate that. And now our guest for this episode is talented and humble to the point of pissing off just about anyone that he crosses paths with. Is that an accurate description, Lance?
I think that's pretty good.
It's pretty good, right?
Yeah, if he ever figured out that he was as good as he was, we'd all be in trouble.
Yeah, there is a little bit of that. So he is an incredible euphonium player, an incredible pianist, a writer, an arranger. His name is Fernando Deddos. How are you, Fernando?
I'm very good, very good.
And soon to be Dr. Deddos.
Yeah.
Yeah, very soon to be Dr. Deddos.
I'm afraid of that.
You're afraid of that.
You know, that's not like you don't get to be like a regular doctor. Well, I don't know in Brazil, but here, like, you wouldn't be allowed to practice medicine. It's like a music thing. You can practice. See what we did there.
I have no feeling in my left leg. Take me to the euphonium player. He's a doctor. Speaking of which, we should start with how we met you and all that, but we'll get to that in just a second. You're about to be the first doctor of euphonium in Brazil's history, correct?
Yeah, that is correct. And probably that's just because we don't have that opportunity there. So I just took the decision to go out and get that, I think Euphonium deserves that.
There you go.
Yeah, there you go.
See?
I would have our audience vote on that, but you two probably wouldn't like the results, so we'll just say absolutely. Good for you people.
And you're getting your doctorate. We should let people know you're getting your doctorate at the University of Georgia. And 2 episodes ago, if we do these sequentially, 2 episodes ago we interviewed your current teacher, David Zirkle, DZ.
Yeah. DZ, yeah.
DZ.
He said
it sounds cooler when you say it. Everything sounds cooler when you say it.
Did he already interview my master's degree professor?
He can barely conjugate verbs, so we try not to put too big of a burden on him.
Yeah.
In case anyone couldn't connect those 2 dots, that his master's professor's name is Lance LaDuke. So
that's right. Fernando got a master's at Duquesne University here in Pittsburgh and was the best musician in the school. He's just I'm going to quit saying nice things about you because it just sounds like you're paying us.
I haven't. I have not ever been his actual teacher, but I've taught him a lot of life lessons. So those may be my words and not his. But
and knot tying.
Absolutely.
Useful knots
for sure. So we, Lance and myself, were down in Brazil. In Tatuí for a brass festival there. This was with Boston Brass back in 2010, and that is where we met Fernando. Lance, why don't you tell the story? It was kind of cool how we met him and anyway, Lance, take it away.
Well, we were down there, I don't know, better part of a week, and there were a number of Boston Brass played a little concert. We did a master class. We were teaching individual sessions, and then here's this guy, Fernando Deddos, is going to play this recital, euphonium and piano. And so Andrew and I went to the recital, and I think the first piece might have been Hatata, or it could have been Abacando. I can't remember, but whatever the first tune was, I was totally freaked out,
floored.
Not only the finesse and the technique and all of that stuff. 2 things really struck me. One was that most of the pieces on the program were written by Fernando, and the other was that his approach to playing and his writing was unlike anything I had heard up to that point. I wasn't very familiar with Brazilian popular music or Brazilian forms, and you play with a tone quality that's a slight difference from what the way American players play. And the more I've gotten to know you, the more I understand, I think, where that comes from and how that has evolved. And it's not a better or a worse sound, it's a different sound kind of a thing. And it's just, not to get too euphonium-y, but the euphonium, it tends, it's easy to get just sort of a basic sound. But to bring a personality to the tone there's a lot more that goes into that, and that came out of your horn instantly. And so, I was captivated by your playing, and I remember talking to you afterwards, and there was a big mob, and there was special effects, and you're doing vocal things, and you're just the rhythms of the writing were just awesome. And then to find out that you were looking at potentially looking to get a master's, I thought, oh man, well there's about a 0% chance he's going to want to come to Pittsburgh to do that with me, but
that's a higher percentage than I thought.
Yeah, and so, but one thing led to another, and it all worked out, and we got you to come up and got the masters here, and then moved down to Georgia. But it was just, I was instantly taken with your playing and your writing.
Speaking of his writing, everyone who can hear this podcast right now has heard Fernando's music. The intro music to the Brass Junkies is
thanks for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So we thought, whose music could we put at the beginning of this where we have to pay no one anything at all to use it? We're like, wait, the two of us playing and just that, and then, we can just use Fernando's music. Yeah, he'll actually thank us. So, no, we actually, that's is called Duo Divertimento number 2. And we, Lance and I, just last month, we opened our joint recital at the University of Georgia, where we had a residency with that piece. It's a great piece if you're a tuba or euphonium player looking for something cool. It's I'm a big fan of his writing. So let's start there. How did you get into composition?
Well, when I was teenage, I had a very good band director, and in terms that he would motivate you for everything else than playing. So actually, I can start with my first teacher. I think I was lucky with my professors. So I started in piano and organ when I was little, and I'm very agitated. So I consider myself curious. And then my first teacher, she would allow me to, instead of playing the written arrangements, to play things that I was listening to. She was very nice in that, you can ornament or do things that you feel that you should. So she was my first teacher. I was very lucky that she would allow me to do things over the written down. And then this guy, the band director, he actually, since I was playing piano at the same time, he said, "Why you don't start arranging for the band?" I was like 13, so he was actually motivating me as a teenager. So I think he felt that I could arrange things, and I was already playing my cousin's band, like in nightclubs, pretty young. Because
at 13, wow.
Yeah, my mom would allow because he was my cousin, and they would pick up me home, take me to the gigs, and bring me home in the middle of the night. It was, and getting paid, a little bit. And I learned a lot from that. So
you were playing piano at these gigs?
Yeah. Keyboard, and I did actually play some trumpet at that time because it's traditional to have this kind of German Brazilian march in the south of Brazil because we have a big German colony in the south of Brazil. So we have these bands that they keep like 2 trumpets and play like German marches with Brazilian in Portuguese lyrics. I would play a little bit of trumpet in that and piano. But so this conductor, he kind of started to motivate me to start to arrange the band. And then I decided by myself that I would like to compose as well, because I was listening to wind band music, like American wind band music, and of course symphonic music at the same time that I was playing pop tunes.
Do you remember any of the wind band music you were listening to?
Well, we would play these more educational, like James Schweringen, these things.
Oh, right.
This
even
James Colonel, Robert Smith, and plus, of course, I would play all the Brazilian like traditional marches and things that Euphonium is very prominent on that. And at the same time being influenced by the pop band. The keyboard player is usually the guy that coordinates the harmonic part of the band and things. So that everything motivated myself to start writing because I started to have my own ideas. And a very important thing is that I was an RPG player, which is like that game, the books, the Dungeons and Dragons.
Oh yeah.
Geek. It's a geek thing. And,
like Euphonium.
Yeah. Well, and that actually this medieval like supernatural world like dragons and things motivated me to start to do little soundtracks for our games. So at the same time, I wrote like a piece called the Mystic Knights, which was the name of our RPG group for the band. It was a school band, but it was not a wind band. Actually, was a brass group, brass band, not a British brass band, but a brass group and percussion. But we would play transcriptions of wind band music. So I remember that my very first composition for this group, I was like 14 or 15, something like the official one. They didn't want to play because we're not gonna play your music, no. And then you just hear comments like that. Oh, this part sounds like John Williams. This part sounds like Robert Smith or whatever composer. So that's how I started. And then, but this guy, the conductor, he actually said, "Oh, don't worry about them. Just keep writing." Mm. And then they brought some guests. I think the guy saw, and they said, "Oh, you should keep writing. Why you don't go to college like composition?" So that's what I did. I moved it to the capital since I couldn't do euphonium. There's no performance euphonium like major in Brazil, so I did composition.
When did you pick up the euphonium along the way? Maybe I missed that part.
Yeah, I started. So that's how I started in this band. I was actually playing. My sister was a dancer, ballet dancer. I was playing keyboard in the reception, like in the end of the year, like while people were talking. And this conductor was there, and he saw me playing. He said, "Well, I need more players for my band." And it was like a private school. So he talked to my father. He offered like a scholarship thing, like for me to play in the band as well. Because he would try to find people like musicians, kind of this in the town, and would offer scholarship. Yeah, and at the time my father couldn't pay for that school. It was a Catholic school, and then but the band was open to the public at the same time. And then I started playing the mellophone.
Oh, really?
Because they didn't have French horns. Mm-hmm. And then I would play French horn parts in an E flat mellophone.
Right.
But at the first time I heard like the euphonium, we call it bombardino.
Mm-hmm. Sounds cooler.
Yeah, and then,
everything sounds cooler when they say it.
And then I just got in love with the counterpoints in the marches. Mm-hmm. And the euphonium would also play all the cello parts and the horn parts since you didn't have. It was kind of a little pop star in the band, like the first trumpet and first euphonium, like playing all the solos and things. And then I said, I think I want to play that. But I didn't say that to anyone, so that took like about 2 years in the group. So one guy left, and I played little flugelhorn in the band as well. That's why I played trumpet. And then he said, well, we have a position left for the euphonium. Who should take it? I remember the guy, I always thanked him. He's a sax player and a tuba player, but he plays more sax now. He said, "Oh, why Fernando? Why you don't give the euphonium to Fernando?" And so they gave me the euphonium. And I remember that I was so into it that I already knew a lot of the counterpoints because I would play. So I started just playing and yeah.
So this, you talk about counterpoint. I mean, I think I know what you're talking about because since I met you, I've really kind of become a huge fan of Brazilian music. Are you talking about like frevo, or are you talking about?
No, I'm talking about like marches.
And so these German marches, they'll have the main melody, and it's just basically a counter melody.
Yeah, but this is not about the German marches. This is about the traditional Brazilian marches. Because we have like Sousa's marches. Uh-huh. We call it dobrados. We have a name for that, which is very DOBRADO, like doubled.
I see.
Would be translated.
So what's doubled is the trumpet and the euphonium? Is that what the
doubled is like the range of the rhythms, because it's in two usually. And the Brazilian marches are more in the feeling of a 6/8 usually, like taka-ta-taka-ta-taka, something. And the rhythm is a little bit different than for example, Sousa's march, a little bit. So it's a 19th century thing. We call dobrados instead. They were influenced by Sousa's, but it was already happening at the same time.
So late 19th century, early 20th century.
Even before, like.
Really?
Like as soon as the military band started in Brazil, they decided to compose marches as well. Mm-hmm. Even, for example, if you see in my solo CD, I recorded a version of a traditional Brazilian march, which is it's a 19th century march, Brazilian, like from the countryside, like small municipal bands, like civic bands. And then, so that is basically it's a very famous counterpoint euphonium parts. Like every if you so the euphonium it's known as the one that plays the counterpoint for the main melody, and it's all the time moving a lot in the Brazilian marches, traditional marches.
I see.
So that took my interest more than the actual melody, because that mellow sound playing all those lines. And that's actually, you asked about the traditional frevo or choro, like traditional, more popular genres. Actually, these band music, when they started to arrange these popular tunes to bands as well in turn of century, 19th to 20th. So that happened that euphonium became also a counterpoint instrument for popular music, for influence for that. So that's why. So and that moved my interest to the instrument.
And did it that? But if memory serves, you told me that shifted away from euphonium, and you're trying to shift it back. But what? So there had to have been some pretty amazing players back then. To play these parts are very intricate and technical.
There were actually. That's part of my research actually right now. In choro, for example, one of the military bands, one of the most important in Rio, the conductor he was important for connecting this military band music with the guys from street playing the urban music, the popular genres. So he started to arrange that. His name is Anacleto de Medeiros. He's a very interesting composer as well, not only for marches, for our popular songs and some overtures. And the guys from this band were like prominent, like fine players in Rio at the time, which was still empire. Rio was the capital at that time, so main town in the country. And one guy specifically was an ophicleide. Ophicleide is a big deal in Brazil as well at that time.
Why? Is it because of the German immigrants? They just brought all these brass instruments, or how did that happen? Do you know?
Well, it happened through military bands and all things that would come, like Portuguese, of course, and Italians, actually. Oh, yeah. German came much more to the south, but the Portuguese military bands had this structure at the time as well. So it was a Portuguese empire of Brazil at the time. So it became influential to how a military band. If you see the history even of the bands in Portugal, it's a little similar. They call the philharmonic bands. That's how we call as well. So it comes from how they do in Portugal. So the ophicleide suddenly became very important instrument for this street genre. And there's a guy, very nice guy. His name is Everson. He's from Rio. He's kind of about my age. He's playing like now ophicleide again. All these tunes, he's bringing that back right now, like 100 years.
What's his name?
Everson Moraes. And he's a great trombone player as well. So this guy, Irineu Batina, was main player in the genre. It became influential to the genre as a whole, playing euphonium and ophicleide, because he was good, and he actually was the teacher of Pixinguinha.
Oh, okay.
Professor of the guy that became the most important composer of the genre. So
Pixinguinha, for people who aren't familiar, is sort of would it be fair to say he's sort of like as Astor Piazzolla is to Argentinian music, Pixinguinha is to...
I would say maybe what Villa Lobos is to Brazilian, what Piazzolla is. Pixinguinha is more what, let's see, maybe Louis Armstrong is to jazz.
Ah, okay. There you go.
Like that type of promotion of jazz, the development of the thing at the time, the swing. And then Pixinguinha was the guy that like promoted the genre, organized the structure, form, like these guys, like, or even Fletcher Henderson, that type, like the old, or Duke Ellington maybe. Duke Ellington, these guys that organize, structure the jazz. So I think Pixinguinha is the guy that condensed the choro as a genre.
I see.
This stuff is so fascinating. There's just so many layers from I guess this is true of culture everywhere, but just the factors from from political factors and different countries and colonization and and then how that parallels musical trends and like Lance was pointing out, just even instruments being introduced, and I mean it's all fascinating.
Yeah.
Andrew says fascinating a lot.
I do say fascinating a lot. This is two interviews in a row. We got to get somebody who's kind of boring for the next one, so I stop saying that stupid word.
Yeah.
So do you feel like the music that you write, I mean, to me, just a dumb American, it all is evocative of what I assume is popular music in Brazil. But do you feel like it bridges the gap between, say, traditional classical music in Brazil and popular music? Or how would you describe the music that you write?
So I come from a diversity of influences. So I played at the same time. That's what I was playing, like Tchaikovsky maybe and Beethoven transcription, and playing this carnival music, which is pretty strong culture, for example, in Brazil. Mm-hmm. Even if you're in the South, which is not real carnival, but it's like mandatory. Everyone knows all the marches, kind of. If you're a wind player, you end up playing the marches in the carnival. It's a period. So I try to I don't label my music, but I think I'm very open to any influence I had and I can have. I don't limit that, and I think it's primarily rhythmic, like how the Brazilian rhythm influenced my music. That is something that convinced myself. I think I would be a percussion player if I weren't a Euphonium player, but so that's how I think as a language now, trying to bring. There's a big discussion in Brazil about what is to be a nationalistic, is this a word, composer, because there was a trend like 50 years ago between guys that were getting the Schoenberg schools, that's more very academic, and the guys that were bringing, actually assuming what is this Brazilian culture. I kind of buy that idea, but in 21st century perspective, which is not being like, I'm not defending anything. I'm just assuming because I think that's how it works nowadays. So I even assume that I have, if you're heavy metal phrase comes to my mind, because I used to be an Iron Maiden fan, for example.
Yeah, man.
Which is a British band. So I'm still a fan, for example, I assume. So you're going to find little chunks in my, so it's not Brazilian, but I think it is because we are a colony as well, like America, It's a diversity of things. I think the main thing that happened in Brazil about the rhythm is that the way that the variety of drums, for example, I see more in US, the drum set or the drum kit and percussion. Not as much, for example, the African drumming you still have, but I think I see much more there. The hand drumming culture, it's common more everywhere there. I think that it was kept more in the slavery time or whatever. But that's why maybe the variety of the percussion in Brazilian genres is what influences me most, I think.
Yeah,
I go rhythm before actual notes, besides the fact that I am already influenced by all the academia or whatever.
Well, I wonder how many people thought that a Brazilian guy was going to be the first person to mention Iron Maiden on the best.
Hey, this is Lance. We'll get you right back to the interview in just a minute. I wanted to, first of all, thank you all for listening. You've been wonderful. We've got hundreds of you that are listening to every episode, and that's just great. It's very rewarding to Andrew and me. And we wanted to let you know that if you're interested in helping us cover the costs associated with recording and uploading and storing these podcasts, there's a quick and easy way for you to do that, and that's through a site called Patreon, Patreon. And at Patreon, if you sign up through that site, you can pick a dollar amount, $1, $3, $5, $10, however much you want. And every time we upload an episode, your account will be deducted for that amount. And you can set an upper limit per month or per year so that if we end up uploading additional content, that you won't be charged more than wherever you set that limit. You also will get access to some free downloads and behind the scenes things that Andrew and I are working on in preparing for future episodes. So if you're interested in helping out, we'd love to have you help you. Thank you very much for listening. Spread the word. Visit pedalnotemedia.com, click on the donate button, and we look forward to hearing from you soon. And now back to your regularly scheduled podcast, already in progress.
Billion guy was going to be the first person to mention Iron Maiden on the best.
I actually played. I was 16, 17, 18. I played in a heavy metal Euphonium and tuba group.
That's awesome.
I don't remember if I told you this, but it was called the Metal War.
No, the Metal War?
Metal War. So there was a guy playing a valve trombone, playing the vocal lines. I was the solo guitar.
Yeah.
And then we would use all the shirts, t-shirts, like heavy metal bands. And then there were 3 euphoniums and 1 sousaphone. The guy was actually pretty good on articulating everything. He's not even a professional. He doesn't actually play sousaphone. He used to play in like the school band, but he would love metal. And the drummer was the main piece. He was a great drummer, actually. He's an actual professional heavy metal drummer now. That's what he did.
So is this anywhere now, or still the recordings or videos or anything?
Yeah, I have to hear a valve trombone playing the role of Bruce Dickinson.
This friend of mine is still a fan. And he would get like midis or things and just try to play this guitar solo. And then we would...
Put a whammy bar on your euphonium?
I want a whammy bar on an Ophiclide, man. I'd actually buy one.
That's an influence as well. So
Wow, the more that even just hearing you talk about all this stuff, it's like it's all kind of starting to make more sense. I mean, everything from your writing to your to the wide range of skills that you have on the instruments. There's a piece that you wrote for your wife, right? A love song that you wrote that you like play euphonium and you play the piano at the same time, and it's gorgeous. Like that's the just so that you know, that's the kind of stuff that pisses everybody off because it's absolutely stunningly beautiful writing, and then the piano playing is remarkable, and the euphonium playing is, and it's too much. It's not appropriate.
Appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, that was you closed out. That was what Andrew's talking about. Was Fernando's final recital at Duquesne. He opened with the Ponchielli, which is what most people close the program with because it's hard and you just sort of leave it all on the stage. Except this knucklehead, that's his opener. And the closer was a surprise to Mariana, your wife, right? I don't think she knew that it was happening. Was it her birthday or anniversary, or what was the occasion? I can't remember.
I think nothing. Just the fact that
Tuesday.
It was a Tuesday.
She was able to support me, and she is able to live with me. So it's
so sweet. Oh, so I wrote this piece for her, and he starts playing piano and phoneme at the same time.
It's kind of a little wild. That's last year I wrote a concertino for trombone and string orchestra, and then the actual second movement is that I used that tune.
Oh, really?
And I actually used this motive, her name I used throughout like the whole concertino. I was just fishing that because just took advantage of. I think it was. It's a very cheesy, but.
No, it's not.
No,
it was really beautiful and tender and very sweet.
Intentionally cheesy.
Okay.
That's the kind of thing that the rest of us just can't compete with. Yeah, there's a James Corden who's got the Late Show host now. He has a fantastic. I just saw this the other day for the first time. He has a fantastic bit that he does, which is called carpool karaoke. And the whole, if you guys haven't seen it, you have to, anybody in the audience. And the whole premise is that his traffic is so bad in Los Angeles where he lives that he needs to ride to work with someone so that he can take the carpool lane. And the one that I saw was with Stevie Wonder. So it's just, so it's him and Stevie Wonder in the car together. And he's just playing Stevie Wonder tunes, and he and Stevie Wonder are singing along with all these Stevie Wonder tunes. And it's like, it will give you goosebumps if you're even remotely a Stevie Wonder fan. But then he says that his wife is never going to believe him that he's in the car with Stevie Wonder. So he says, "Can you say hello to my wife?" And he calls his wife, and then Stevie Wonder then proceeds to sing "I Just Called to Say James Loves You," and it's like, and so Stevie Wonder is serenading this guy's wife with one of the, personalized, one of the most famous love songs of all time, and it's like, you'll tear up watching it, and then you're just like, this jerk, like talking about James. It's like, how are the rest of us supposed to compete when this guy gets Stevie Wonder to call his wife and sing "I Just Called to Say I Love You" to you? So you're like Stevie Wonder. You what now?
Did you let him drive the car?
That's how the whole skit begins. Is that you just see James in the driver's seat, or excuse me, in the passenger seat, and then he says, "I'm not sure I'm comfortable with this," and then it pans over to Stevie Wonder, and the audience erupts. And it's the reason that he couldn't drive is because he left his license at home. So that is 10 minutes very well spent on the video. So check it out. So you are about to take over kind of like a dream gig for you down in Brazil, which is incredibly well deserved. But can you tell us about the school that you are going to be teaching at momentarily?
Sure. Well, in Brazil, the people rely a lot in the public educational system, which is free. So it's usually a lot of people apply for that, but they don't get that. They try because it's a lot of competition to get, in these free schools. They are federal and state schools. So I'm going to be teaching in one of the federal institutions. They call federal institutions of a specific state. In my case, it's going to be the Rio Grande do Norte, which would be translated as the big northern river state. That's the name of the state. And then
how many states in Brazil?
At 27. 27. Yeah. Well, the Amazon is like super big, so that's why
I've heard that.
Yeah. So
the Amazon is like super big.
Brazil is that big. It's U.S. has 50, right? And then Brazil has only 27, but its continental is basically the same. Well, because it's preserved somehow. But there's not a.
I wasn't. There was no value judgment in the number of states. I didn't mean it that way.
I was judging. I was like, well, it looks like we've got them licked there.
Okay. But
step it up, guys.
We could probably give a few states back actually, but I won't list them just to But you all know which ones I'm talking about anyway.
Okay. That's going to be in the northeastern part of the country, in the coast. It's a capital called Natal, which means Christmas, which is a very contemporary subject. But
we're recording this a couple weeks before Christmas. Probably won't air till January sometime.
Okay.
Or maybe early February.
Okay.
Let's just lie.
Okay.
We'll just lie and say that whenever this actually goes live is when Brazilian Christmas is. So
that's right.
Nobody will know.
Okay. So the thing is that this is a federal institution, and that's fortunately that's Unfortunately, we hadn't that before, but fortunately now, like Euphonium players are going to also be able to enter to a public, a free institution and get a bachelor's in Euphonium. In tuba, it was a possibility already. I'm going to have to teach also the tuba players.
You mean get to teach, not have to teach.
Yeah, I'm going to have to, actually. Well, yeah. The position is tuba and euphonium professor, and then
what you're saying is that hold on, because you're glossing over a whole thing. So because you're getting this doctorate, because you had this dream, you are now going to make it a thing that was not possible for I don't know how many students. You are now making it possible. Well, just
Hey,
relax, take the compliment, man. This is like an amazing thing. Like you're doing an incredible thing that people will look back on and say, I mean, not to put too fine a point on it. We're not, curing some major disease, but you've carved a path that very, very few people have carved. And that's an amazing thing. So now you can talk.
Yeah, well, it's
once his
well, it
student,
was
always
my-
his student.
That's right.
I can tell that I remember when I was about 16, 17, when I was okay, I'm gonna do this, and I remember I saw that was the first time talking about being a doctor that I saw the Brian Bowman's name.
Mm-hmm.
And that was the first time that I saw a doctor in front of the name of an Euphonium player. I know that he's not the first, but he's pretty known. And then I get through internet, even in my small town, very slow internet in the 90s. And I said, oh, we can be a doctor playing Euphonium. And then I remember in that day when I was moving, I said, oh, I have this possibility. And I said, and that's why I developed during my undergrad this motivation to somehow go over that barrier that I had to actually bring the euphonium for the academia, the musical academy in Brazil as well, because it was totally ignored. It's just like the last 10 years, not only me, a couple of friends are doing this as well. And then I think the way that I just took that as an advantage that the euphonium was actually a weird or a piece that was not seen, and that actually helped me to have this idea. Oh, so I can actually have a master's degree, and then I had this opportunity, and I discovered that the U.S. would be a good country for that, because this is a country that have this possibility, developed that. So, and I think I thought, and I remember even when I was studying with Lance, I talked to him. I think I want to come back because I didn't have this opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to try to help to give that opportunity to these guys, and even it's super hard to buy a horn in Brazil because most are imported. So if I might even come back and collaborate, not only make this school and then to start even collaborating to build better horns and things like this. Everything. This step I think can motivate a lot of things.
Sure.
Trigger, the sense of the euphonium players and even tuba players, because tuba is also in the same situation, because they are connected in the sense that, for example, the international association is the same, so these things, and then the tuba players are taking the same step right now in Brazil. I think that's going to happen soon as well, so it's coming.
Really great.
Yeah, it really is.
How big of a studio will you have down there?
I think they have 8 students now, because there was a guy teaching tuba, like 4 youths, 4 tubas. Mm-hmm. But the thing is that this school offers like a tech, like a degree, a professional degree, something like this. Mm-hmm. So you have people that they are not in the higher education program. They're just taking this degree, this professional training. So I'm gonna teach both people they're gonna get bachelor degree and major in euphonium, and or people that just are already military guys, for example, that they are in school, but they wanna, get. I'm gonna be able to teach them as well, because the school offers that. Besides the fact that it is a higher education, but they can also access, even if they are 40 years old, they can access, and they have this interest because they just didn't have professors before, or maybe so.
Do you have? Is it the same in terms of here in the United States we have what's called tenure? So you get tenure after usually say 7 years. Do you have to go through a tenure process similar to that, or how does the appointment work? How many years is your initial contract?
It's basically a lifetime. There's no initial.
Wow.
When you get to a public position in Brazil when you because the process is pretty long, and it's very different because here you open the position and people send the resume and everything, and then you invite people that you want to be, which is interesting as well. It's some more efficient as well. But when we talk about a public position in Brazil, state or federal, national, you have to open to the public for everyone. So you can require a degree, for example. Like we require a master's degree for applying for this position. But if you have like 100 guys that have a master's degree in trumpet, you have to hear have to let all these 100 come to at least to the first step, which it would be a written test or something.
Wow.
And then in my case there were not much, but so once you get this position, it's lifetime. You have 1 to 3 like probatory period. That's how we would say here, and 3 years. But it's basically it never happens usually. You just have to do whatever, like the basics that you have. No one's gonna, unless you really do something wrong for the institution. You have you have this right. Once you sign and you get this position, it's your right forever. So you just can fight for this right that you have to teach now. And then it's a progressive career, like a tenure track here. So then your income increases towards basically, when you have like 10 or 15 years of service, you produce, you publish and things. So they started to. It depends on you, but it's basically lifetime.
Well, that's all right.
Yeah.
That's cool. Yeah. But
and in a beautiful part of the world too. I mean, what the heck? I would be mad at you if I didn't like you so much because it's just all going perfectly. It's really great.
But sometimes that becomes a problem for some institutions. For example, some orchestras in Brazil used to be like that, and now they are changing a little bit the system. But you would hire, for example, a violin player, like second violin position, and then it's a public job, so he has this right.
I see.
You cannot take him out unless he's really, it kind of. So people sometimes, unfortunately, they stop practicing or something because I have this job. I just go and play my notes a little bit. They played well when they entered, and then that it compromises the quality of some groups. But that is changing little by little, and that's why they say sometimes about some university professors that they just enter in the position. They like in 10 years or like in 20 years, like 3 guys, like they had like 3 students or something. No. They didn't. So, but I think the new generation is solving that as well. So.
Well, that doesn't ever happen in this country. Boom.
Do you have a question, Andrew? I have one about traditional music, but if you want to go in another direction, you can go for it.
No, actually, my question was going to be to you to ask if you had a question.
I do. Oh, should I ask it?
Yeah, that would be.
Okay. So this is a question that I asked you yesterday and you didn't respond to me. So now I'm going to ask you right now, so you have to answer it. So in traditional frevo music or choro music or foro, now I don't know all of the differences, but let's say there's a quote unquote traditional ensemble. How many people and what would the instruments be in sort of its most basic form?
Well, we call, for example, starting with choro. For those who doesn't know, choro means to cry in Portuguese. So that's the name of the genre, which if you know samba, probably this rhythm, samba is related also to choro. They are similar in essence. But we call the choro has its regional. That's how we call. So a choro regional, it's a setup that became standard. So which would be a 7-string guitar, a 6-string guitar. Because the 7-string guitar became a Brazilian thing to have an extra bass. That's the bass instrument, which makes counterpoint. 6 and a cavaquinho, which is a ukulele-like instrument for strings, small. But
I'd love to get one of those one day.
You will. I promised you I will get that now.
Yeah.
And then the banjo sometimes, and one or two.
Wait, banjo?
Banjo sometimes plays in
Really?
in choro, but not always. But plays
4-string, 5-string, what?
4 string,
Yeah.
and then but more bandolin, which we the mandolin we call with B.
Okay.
So it's bandolin, which is basically a mandolin, but a little bit different shape. And then 2 wind instruments. One would play the melody, which would became a flute, became standard because of Pixinguinha's group, that guy that we talked about, and a tenor sax or a trombone, essentially an euphonium, would play a counterpoint for that, or sometimes a melody. So they just shared. Would be a standard for a choro, a regional. In frevo, which is a northeastern music, comes straight from band music. So frevo originally it's a wind band in street playing. It's a wind band.
Bigger, so 15,
wind
20
band
players
with
or more than that?
more. Like in Carnival, they have 40. It's a whole wind band in streets and like percussion. The only thing is that frevo comes from marches, so it's a type of march, but became carnival music. In the carnival, they just stayed the whole day playing through the city, the town, like not only the carnival time, like maybe they have these frevo groups. And then they started the rhythm. The genre doesn't depend on that. That's the traditional frevo orchestra they call sometimes. It's like a big band thing, but it's not. It's specific. But it's a wind group, essentially tuba originally, and of course modern versions. They have a bass player, it can be an electric bass, whatever. It's a drum set comes, but originally it's only percussion. Percussion is like separate instruments, but in like modern, so ensembles they have whatever. You just have to arrange for that. But it usually relies. It's a wind like violin is not a frevo, like traditional instrument. There are guys that play it, research that, but it's usually wind instruments music.
And what about foro?
Choro or
no foro? F-O-R-O.
Forró. We say forró is
Forró.
Forró is another thing.
I don't, Fernando. I don't think you're pronouncing that right. Say it again for him, Lance.
Forró.
Forró. Actually, they even say that there were, I don't know if Brits or Americans in the Northeast at the time, or English influence, I don't know, but the forró, there's a theory that comes from for all. So that was a dance that was for all. So that's the way that the guy would forró became forró, the name of the genre. They say this, I don't know if it's accurate or not, but it's all these genres are connected to a social part, not a party, an event.
I see.
So people are usually like forró is a thing that you have a couple dancing, and then the forró is actually a trio. Originally, for example, it's the bass drum called zabumba, very specific with even like stripes and chords, things more like roots, like old style of drum, like a triangle and an accordion. That's a forró trio. You don't need more than that. And a singer. So and we have, but I'm pretty south, for example. So we're gonna have several other genres. All the milongas, which are, if you know Piazzolla, he has some milonga in his names, which is Argentinian. He doesn't write the actual like milonga. He has his music, but it's based in Argentinian traditional music. It's like southern Brazilian music can be closer to Argentinian, but it's still different. Accordion is a very important instrument in Brazil, all Brazilian genres. And in southeast, in more central Brazil, we're gonna have the 10-string guitar. So it's another like countryside music. Like our country music would be that. And accordion is in all of that.
And you grew up in the southern part of Brazil, yeah?
I'm southern, yeah. So which is only 3 states, the south region.
That's fine. I'm not judging.
Yeah, but I'm saying that is small.
Oh, okay.
It's
So when we were down in Athens for the residency at UGA, one of the evenings you very graciously had us over to your apartment, and you cooked us about 300 pounds of Brazilian barbecue,
And
and
I thought that I forgot that LaDuke was vegetarian.
Yeah,
Right.
which meant that instead of there only being like 75 pounds for me, it ended up being like 150 pounds for me. So
You made very nice zucchini squash, though. That was very, very good, actually.
Oh, okay.
60 pounds. I've almost rehydrated from all of the salt that was on it.
yeah, so actually, can you enough about the zucchini? Can you tell us about you went to a Brazilian butcher, you said, and it was like a specific cut of meat, and then you put this salt on it, and it was magical. So I would like you to tell us what it was, and you love to cook. So talk to me about that barbecue.
Well, so like you have these Brazilian steak houses in US. So this model comes from the south of Brazil. So and that became a fashion in the whole country, but that style of making meat and everything. But it's originally how the travelers from the past would cook meat and then develop this tradition. The thing is that in the south of Brazil, in the very bottom, there's a region we call the Pampas, which is
I have a region that I call the Pampas, too, but that's a whole different... We can't really talk about that.
That is not okay. Oh, stop it. I beg you. All right, keep going.
Anyway.
Keep going.
Pampas.
It's in the south.
Pampas. Pampas.
What is... hold on, Fernando. What is wrong with you, Lance? That's not a rhetorical question. Like, what is wrong with you?
Oh, I thought we were talking about something else.
What is wrong with you?
Talking about meat. I thought I just sort of...
On behalf of the entire audience, what is wrong with you?
Oh. See, the Pampas are a very flat region. I'm getting there. Like a plant type of field, and the grass, it's a very specific and good grass for feeding cattle. And the fact that there are no mountains makes the cattle to do not exercise. So the meat becomes very good because of both things and of the climate as well, which is a little cold. And so and they get very fat and off. So that's why like Southern Brazilian and Argentinian meat, they also have this type of Pampas.
Now he can't even say it without giggling. I am losing control of this interview.
Well, so this thing, the quality of the meat may develop this culture of using like fire, of course, originally albraise, wood, original. And basically nowadays it became traditional that if you build a house in the south of Brazil, it's already, because usually it's a brick house. That's the whole house is a brick house. It's part of the architecture to have a barbecue, a griller when you build a house. So that's this culture of making meat only with salt comes from the quality of the meat itself. So we put only the sea salt. And here in U.S., so Marietta, which is close to Atlanta, they have a big Brazilian community, so they do this type of the cuts that we do in the south of Brazil. So that's why I found that the cut and then the specific part. I think the cattle, the bowl, whatever, is the same, but it's just a way to cut it. In the case there, I think the quality of the meat, because it just grow whatever they want, it just stay. It's grass fed totally. So that the meat is already good. So we don't put sauce. That's the theory. We don't use sauce. I like as well, for example, the American barbecue style. They're using like Texan or whatever. But I think the quality of the meat brings the the need for only salt.
It was phenomenal. It was not lacking anything in flavor at all. So, which was, it's kind of, and I too love some American barbecue with some incredibly complex sauces and seasonings, etc. But there's something cool about traveling to Spain where you can have like just a phenomenal dish that has like 3 ingredients, and it's just the quality of the ingredients, how it's used, or that barbecue that you made. I'm not even going to say the word because you're both just going to giggle. With just the salt. Yeah, it was really, really phenomenal. So the salt reminds me of my good friend Jens Lindemann. I'm not sure why, but Fernando, I'm sure you're aware, as the entire international brass community is aware of the chop problems that our dear, dear, dear friend Jens has been undergoing of late, and so we were wondering if you could maybe offer up any advice to him or any encouraging words.
Well, I'm just gonna do that in Portuguese because I cannot advise that better. I think eu acho que os trompetistas têm que parar de falar de bocal. É isso.
Trumpetistas, I like that.
That was
sure.
my advice.
Trumpet cheese dogs. Trumpet and cheese go together kind of automatically. They're pompous.
And take care of your pampas, yes, pampas.
We want to hear your music. What's the best way to do that? SoundCloud or YouTube, or what's the best way to check out what you're writing?
SoundCloud is something that I'm doing right now, and then my CD is on CD Baby only, which is an old thing now, and I should be in iTunes pretty soon as well.
Okay, you've been working on the doctorate, so you're still
yeah. That's the thing, but it's gonna be pretty soon.
And your website is fdeddos.com.
Fdeddos with double D in the middle, DEDDOS.com. Yes.
Great.
I like it.
And man, it really is. As Lance said, it's awesome in this business when great things happen for great people who have worked really hard, and that certainly is the case with you. And that school is more lucky to have you than you are to have them. So congratulations, almost congratulations on being the first doctor of euphonium in Brazil. There's still time to screw it up, so keep your eyes on the prize. So, and be sure to go check out his music and his CD, which is just phenomenal, and fascinating, wouldn't you say, Lance?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd say it's fascinating. So.
And your sheet music's available through Just for Brass. Potenza.
Some
yes.
of stuff are Potenza, some are Euphonium.com.
Okay.
And I have some the unpublished things. You can email me through my website. I can deal with that.
Euphoniumstore.net as well has some stuff up there.
Yeah.
Yep. So
they are in the Junkies as well. These things.
Okay.
Great. Yep. Just Google Fernando Deddos with 3 Ds there. Well, no, 4 Ds, I guess. You got a lot of Ds, man.
Oh
What's
yeah.
up with all the Ds?
And thank you guys for inviting me, and that's great opportunity. I had a lot of fun, and the podcast is great. It's awesome.
Thanks, man.
Well, that will do it for another episode of the Brass Junkies. You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to help support the podcast in order to make more episodes like this one possible, please visit pedalnotemedia.com/donate for more details. Also, be sure to check out our latest recording, The Brass Recording Project, at brassrecordingproject.com. The Brass Junkies is produced by Austin Boyer and Buddy Deschler of the Fredericksburg Brass Institute. Executive producers are Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.